With the incredible discoveries of scientists like Albert Einstein and Edwin Hubble, the deepest secrets of the universe seemed almost within reach. Today, with the help of advanced computers, we can model whole galaxies right in the laboratory. Current research in astrophysics, far from answering all of our questions, continues to reveal a cosmos more wonderful and mysterious than ever. Hello and welcome to Matter and Beyond. I'm your host, Laura Wells. On this episode, we'll share the remarkable story of Piet Hut, a professor at Princeton University's renowned Institute for Advanced Studies. Whether it's tracking comets or exploring the dimensions of human consciousness, Dr. Hut is continually working to expand the frontiers of understanding.
Astrophysicist Dr. Piet Hut is a scientist who envisions new ways to understand science and to be aware of the reality of the universe. His dream starts as a small child growing up in Holland, a dream that fits into the reality that he knows.
My earliest memory is when I was 3 years old, then I wanted to become a garbage truck driver. But soon I changed to wanting to become a train driver, since a train was even bigger and more spectacular than a garbage truck around the corner.
As the young boy grows, so does his imagination and the size of his dreams. From driving a truck and then a train to piloting a ship through space.
From a train I scaled up to wanting to become an astronaut and wanting to fly in a spaceship. And that was just around the time that the first few people went into orbit. I was born in 1952, so at the beginning of elementary school was just the time of Sputnik and Gagarin and Glenn and all that.
Realizing his interest, Dr. Hut now works at the Institute for Advanced Studies at Princeton University, researching areas not previously investigated by the scientific community.
The Institute is a marvelous place for doing research, especially the type of research where you don't know beforehand even the direction you want to go in. Most research these days is very well defined. You apply for a grant and you have to do something very specific. But the Institute for Advanced Study is one of the few places where you really are completely free to go in any new direction you want.
One of the directions that Piet took was the study of asteroids, a study that will certainly be very important one day.
The asteroids are in orbits which cross the orbit of the Earth, but there is so much space that at any given day or any given century there is very little chance that they will hit the Earth. But the Earth is moving around the Sun and all the asteroids are moving around the Sun, so sooner or later we're going to have an accident.
For scientists, it is a certainty that an asteroid will strike the planet as they have in the past. Only the size of the asteroid and the timing of the impact is uncertain.
And it may be a few years, it may be a few thousand years, but we are going to have other asteroid impacts, and someday we're going to have a very big one, but that may be 1,000,000 years from now. It may happen today or tomorrow, we don't know.
In the movie Armageddon, the solution to such an encounter with an incoming asteroid was to blow it up. As usual, Hollywood's solution is not the safest one.
That would be very dangerous, because if you blow up an asteroid, you'll get many smaller pieces, and each of those can do a lot of damage. So in a way, you can make the damage worse by spreading it.
Dr. Hut believes the solution to avoiding a catastrophic impact from an asteroid lies in a gentler approach. He was inspired by a new type of motor called a plasma engine, which is being developed by NASA in Houston.
So it is much better to push it out of the way very gently rather than blowing it up. So that is what we are trying to do. Well, the B612 concept started here behind us when the astronaut Ed Lu and I were walking here around the pond, and in about 10 minutes we had the basic concept.
His achievements in astrophysics resulted in a quite unusual honor. In December 2004, a major asteroid belt was named after him.
Oh, it is nice to have a celestial body named after me. It was one of the 20,000 or so asteroids that have names, so it is not that special, but it's still nice. But unfortunately, it will never come close to the Earth. It is in an orbit between Mars and Jupiter.
Dr. Hut believes that conversational simulations are absolutely essential in astronomy. By developing and discussing a series of questions called what-if scenarios, astronomers can address potential problem areas that may be millions of miles or light years away in the physical sense. However, astronomy and astrophysics had an inherent disadvantage in investigating the nature of certain phenomena.
It is a funny thing because astronomy is the oldest science, and natural science started with astronomy in the days of Galileo and Kepler and Newton.
The phenomenon of the abstract principles in the motions of the heavenly bodies preoccupied the Greeks, and before them, the Babylonians. And independently, half a world away, the Mayans were making precise observations of the celestial bodies as well.
Unlike chemistry and unlike biology and physics itself, astronomers don't have a laboratory. Chemists can do laboratory experiments, and physicists can, and biologists can, but astronomers always have to use a telescope and cannot change the stars themselves. But in the last half century, with the invention of computers, finally astronomers got a laboratory.
Not in the physical sense, but now a kind of laboratory for astronomers does exist in a virtual sense. With the advance of technology and with the imagination of the human mind, today rigorous study of the motions of heavenly bodies is possible.
As an astrophysicist, Piet Hut explores the universe in the largest scales of time and space. His interests, however, don't stop there. In the next half of the program, we'll find out what Dr. Hut has learned about the many ways of knowing, be they subjective or objective, scientific or spiritual. We'll also see what can be gained when different points of view come together.
It has only been over the past 4 centuries that science has truly come into its own. Men such as Galileo, Descartes, and Newton contributed to the development of the empirical process where experiments yield suggestions for the building of new theories in science.
That we now have understood the basic rules of all the matter around us and all the energy around us. There are still some questions left on the very small microscopic structure, much smaller than microscopic really. On the very smallest subatomic structure, we still don't know how the rules really are. But for everyday life, the rules of chemistry, the rules which influence the colors we see around us, the material properties, all of that, atomic and molecular physics, can be understood with the laws we have. So on that level we have been extremely successful.
A distinction made between what appears to be and what really is. In terms of achieving the reality of existence, Dr. Hut sees many parallels between scientific inquiry and religious quest.
The surprise is that the world is different from what it looks like. We look around us and it seems that we know the world. We see grass, trees, people, clouds. We see matter, energy, radiation. We can measure everything and we have the feeling that everything could be understood. But science tells us immediately that things are very different than we think they are.
Looking at water, one sees only a fluid. Looking at rocks, one sees only a solid. But atomic theory reveals that they are composed of atoms which cannot be understood simply by looking at the phenomena themselves.
So behind the phenomena there is a whole different world which you cannot see with your eyes or ears or whatever. And I would say my interest in spirituality are very similar. What more can there be behind the phenomena? Where do the phenomena come from? Is there a different way in which we can look at the totality of what we experience? And in that sense, I would say there is more of a parallel between science and spirituality.
One of the parallels is apparent in the study of the subject. For the past few hundred years, the process of theories and experiments has influenced each other in the study of the object. However, for every observation there is an object, a subject, and the interaction between them.
And my guess would be, in the next few hundred years, science will also focus on the interaction and on the subject. Not because of a new fashion or a new idea, but I think science will be forced to do that.
There are considered to be several areas of study where such a change is necessary. As science is beginning to reach the bounds of what it can do with purely object-oriented ways of thinking.
One of them is quantum mechanics. In quantum mechanics, you cannot really say this is a property of an object. If you measure something in one way, you find certain properties. If you measure in a different way, you really get different properties which are not always compatible with each other.
The uncertainty in quantum mechanics is not simply a lack of knowledge about an object, but a limit to the value of a single set of properties in explaining the object that is the problem. In quantum mechanics, every experiment for the unknown is also an interference. For that reason, the subject-object relation becomes very important at the subatomic level.
The second point, of course, is neuroscience. When people start making images of the brain, by definition, they start making some sort of dictionary, some sort of correspondence or transformation between objective properties and personal experiences.
In a study of the brain, for example, the subject has a personal experience and has to communicate to the researchers, has to tell the researchers what he or she is thinking about or feeling during the experiment. This information gets correlated with the chemical and electrical processes in the brain that the researcher is studying.
So there would be no sense in understanding consciousness if you only would measure the electrochemical processes in the brain. You want to know how it corresponds with the human conscious experience. So this is the second place that the subject comes in.
The third place where science and technology need the role of the subject is in robotics. Past attempts at predicting the future, even as recently as 40 years ago, failed to consider the most important technological advancement in the home today, the use of computers. However, 40 years ago, there was a common prediction in the science fiction community about robots.
The idea was that in a few decades, every house would have a robot which would clean the floor and do all kinds of things. But here we are, 40 years later, and we still don't have robots in the house.
The basic art of robotics is simplicity itself, a few wheels and an arm which moves. Mechanically, a robot is no more complicated than a car which is produced by the millions every year.
What is the reason that we don't have robots is that we don't know how to program the robots. We don't know how to write the software to clean the floor. It sounds crazy because cleaning the floor seems easier than anything else, but we can write the software to beat the strongest chess player in the world, but we cannot write the software to clean the floor. And this shows that we don't know how to make a tool, a robot, which is a subject.
But when man attempts to build and program a robot, he is really building a subject that moves around by itself, a subject that responds, anticipates, and behaves.
And I think that the reason that we are still not very good in building robots is because we don't understand the subject. As a culture, we have spent 400 years really focusing on objects and we have neglected the subject. And now we have to come back and really become more balanced in our understanding of empirical studies and our understanding of experiments and experience.
We all live in a society which is dominated by technology and science and its object-oriented approach to existence. So, no matter how little interest we have in science, it still influences the way we think. And the scientific focus on the object has a very strong influence in society. A focus which has some negative results.
So, no matter how little interest you have in science or how little you know about it, you're thinking, by being in this country, by being in any Western country, and very soon any country in the world will be very strongly influenced by scientific thinking. So you see people treating each other and treating themselves more and more like an object, and that is really a pity.
As opposed to science, religions are, historically, more focused on subjects. If the scientific method must move toward a new paradigm, one that focuses more on the subject than just the object, this can be considered a revolutionary notion. Dr. Hut thinks that we can get close to the reality of existence when we study it with all the human faculties, whether through objective and subjective experiences or through intellectual, spiritual, physical, and artistic exploration of reality.
I want to be more specific, and I really would like to explore a very broad way of studying reality in a deep way from all possible angles, including science, including religion, especially spirituality, especially contemplation and meditation or mysticism, you can say. And of course there are many other angles. There is art, there are other cultural ways of exploring reality.
Returning to the past, Dr. Hut can see that the great sayings and advice from men and women from all the great religions of the world are a kind of science that crosses all cultures and share a common bond. They are the product of many years of training, study, and meditation, of spiritual practices, and of prayer.
So those people who are ready to take the old way and to have a portable short version, they can do that. And there are many ways, there are many teachers, there are many ways to try and do that in modern life.
However, the pace of modern life does not permit the average person the luxury of attaining such wisdom over a long period of time. What if one could try a way to distill the essence of past wisdom and apply it to one's own life and its connection to one's family and work?
Well, I think the answer in principle may be found in the reports that people have given who have had deep realization hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. If you look at the story of the greatest individuals in any tradition, whether it is Hinduism, whether it is Taoism or Buddhism, Christianity, Sufism, in all cases you have somebody who is trying for many years to reach deep insight, and then when a real deep insight comes, their reaction is that, oh, that is surprising, it has always been here, I just did not know how to look at it. So any real spiritual path seems to boil down in the end to learn not to search. So we are searching, and then we have to learn not to search and to completely let go of the idea of searching, and then something presents itself.
He believes that attaining that level of reality is the key to solving many of the problems of today, such as hunger, war, or environmental destruction. Those problems can never be solved on the level they appear. Whenever man creates new laws to make people behave better, people will invariably find new ways to get around those laws.
Any solution which is given on the same level as the problem is presented will never completely cover everything. We have to come at a solution which is much deeper than the way the problems are presented. So if we can see reality better, then in a very natural way we will find more effective ways to deal with all the problems. And I think that every religion has some words of wisdom which were found a long time ago, which have been handed down the ages.
We live in a world where our understanding of existence is constantly developing. As we touch more of reality, our horizons expand, leaving us to wonder how much more remains unknown. Dr. Piet Hut believes one seed of wisdom will always remain: the need for each one of us to step back and contemplate our deeper purpose in the grand scheme of life. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. For Matter and Beyond, I'm Laura Wells. Please join us again next time.